Steve and I met when I was pretty young in my career. He was he's a little bit older than me, and I knew him by reputation. He can be a bit intimidating. We were working at our professional organization on a committee for an awards presentation, and met him in an editing suite, and I came from print world, and he was cinematographer, and he really didn't have a lot of patience for somebody who didn't know what they were doing. But as I got to know him over the years, I saw this great bull of a man was actually more like Ferdinand the Bull. I met his late wife Jane, and he was always so kind and tender with her. Jane had a lot of health issues. She had lifelong diabetes, she had had breast cancer, she had had a kidney transplant, and he always was just so caring of her, and I always admired them, and she was his biggest cheerleader, and I always admired the love that they radiated. So it was as a shock a few years ago when I read on Facebook a post by a friend that she had passed away with a simple line, "She died in his arms." And I remember at the funeral, so many people were so concerned about what was he going to do without Jane. They had been married for so long and they were so dedicated. Well, I didn't really know what it was like to lose a spouse, but I did know what it was like to be suddenly single, because I'd been divorced a couple years by then. And I knew it to be an alternative universe to married world. But I'd collected this group of friends over the past couple years of being single, and they were full of single people and married and unmarried couples, many of them who Steve knew. And so I started including Steve in the group to do things. And soon enough, after a period of time, he started joining us. And over some months, we quickly realized, or I should say, maybe not quickly realized, but we realized that we had an attraction for each other. After months of doing things together as a group and this growing attraction that we had for each other, Steve and I decided it was time to have a first real official date. Just us, no friends with us. And so we went out, and over drinks that night, I very quickly expressed my real concerns. That I was concerned, I didn't want to be just somebody he practiced on after losing this woman that he adored. And he looked me very clearly in the eye and said that he would never compare me to Jane, that Jane was gone, and that he had done his grieving, and that he was ready to move on to his next chapter in his life. That evening, that conversation turned into many hours, and that night as he walked me to my car and we had our first kiss, there was magic in that kiss, and we've been together ever since, which was a little over 4 years ago. A few weeks after that first kiss, as we became a couple, I was at his house, and he was boxing things up. He was having an estate sale, and he was putting things for sale and things to keep. And he handed me a book, and it was a book of daily affirmations. And he said that it was something that Jane liked, and maybe I'd like it too. And he just very casually handed it to me. And it had a bookmark in it. And I opened it up, and it was bookmarked to that day. And as I read that affirmation for that day, it said, live each moment to the fullest, because you never know where you'll be a year from now. And it kind of took me back, and I asked Steve if he had put the bookmark in it, and he had not. And that's when I knew that his soulmate was now looking out for both of us, and that this was her blessing. And that's when I knew he was the one. What surprises me most about our relationship is just how easy it is. You know, when you get to midlife, you know you're not going to change anybody. So we both knew each other before we got here. And he had come from a relationship that had been physically difficult because of his late wife's physical limitations. And I came from a marriage that had been emotionally difficult. And so it's the simple things that we don't take for granted. He loves the fact that he and I can go for a long walk together. And I love the fact that he brings me coffee in bed every morning. And it's just that we love each other and that we always acknowledge that, and we acknowledge our gratitude, and we will never take it for granted, and we tell each other how grateful we are every day. The advice I have for anybody out there who is looking to find love in their life is really very simple. The first thing is that you have to love yourself. If you radiate joy and happiness, then you're going to draw joy and happiness into your own life. I had a good life before Steve and I started dating. I kind of think of it as a really good piece of cake, and that Steve is the icing on that cake.